Hello, everyone, and Money Vikings Collectibles here. Thanks again for joining me and talking all things comics, collectibles, trading cards, toys, etc. I have a little bit of my heart is in a soft spot for the nostalgia of the late 80s and the 90s. And that's one of the themes of today's episode, where I'm going to go through 5 key comics that I believe are set to explode and really go up in value over the years. And these are Bronze Age comics. And I wanted to talk about 5 of them today. And in addition to that, I wanted to, ask that you check out our blog, truewealth.moneyvikings.com. And that's where I also post some things about collectibles. But we also do other investments and stocks and real estate and other things that we like to talk about to help people build a life of true wealth, really. And part of that for me is collectibles and art. So that gets me back to these books here. So the first one is very recognizable. It's the Spider-Man #1. This is the silver edition of this book. This came in several editions. There was a gold edition. There was a regular cover. Some of them were bagged, and always good to keep them in the bags. I particularly always loved the silver one, and I've pretty much had this since it came out in 1990. So this was as the 90s began. It was one of those things where there were way too much supply, so way too many copies were made, and so this really hasn't gone up in value very much for the age of the book, but I think that's going to change in the next couple of years. Spider-Man continues to prove itself to be an extremely valuable property, and the Spider-Verse, as we know, is continuing to grow and mature and go into all kinds of great directions and is creating all kinds of new fandom, and there's just really no sign of that stopping anytime soon or ever. Spider-Man is just such a key part of our culture at this point. So this is the classic, McFarlane days, awesome artwork, very, very much a 90s vibe going on. Really brought the artwork to a whole new level. Comic book art was pretty amazing in my book to begin with. But, there were several artists at that time, McFarlane, Liefeld, Jim Lee, etc., that brought the art to a whole new level. So Spider-Man #1, raw copies aren't that expensive. I think $20. You pick up one of these. When you start to get them graded in the 9s, I think you're going into the 50 to 100 plus range. But I think this is one that's going to stand the test of time. And as with everything like this, supplies go down over time, and that's the thing about collectibles. The supply never goes up. These weren't unlimited printings. These things were printed, they were sold, and now you're talking, let's see, 1990, so that would have been 33 years ago when this came out, and no more have been printed. So you guys all know the economics of supply and demand. So as supply dwindles, the value of what's left goes up. Now there was a lot of these out there, so it's going to be a while. But Spider-Man, iconic cover. It's constantly alluded to, this cover, so it's just part of the whole thing, and it just is so stunning. And you've got this foil treatment that we tend to love. The next one is sticking with a similar theme. You have Spawn #1. This is another one. It's in the same vein as the Spider-Man. There were lots of, there was a huge print of this and lots of copies out there in circulation. Nowadays, you're seeing raw at about $50, and I think you're looking at 9.8, so about $150 plus. But it's another one that I believe will hold its value. #1 of anything is always critical. And Spawn is another character that has a lot of potential to continue to expand and have reincarnations and sort of reimaginations of the lore. So that's another one that I would mention from that era. The next one is new one I've recently added to my collection. This is Punisher War Journal 6. And this is actually from 1989, so I'm cheating a little bit. I told you they're all from the 90s, but anyway, this is the 1989 version. This is the first Wolverine versus Punisher. I think that's a really epic mashup, and you have kind of that, it's that similar sort of vibe that you had going on with the Wolverine Hulk fights and tension that was going on. And, Wolverine just tends to rub people the wrong way, and we all love it, don't we? So 50 raw copies of this, I think, go about $50 if they're in good condition, and graded, you can talk about over 160. But again, all of these are relatively affordable at the moment if you want to add them to your collection. Now, again, you guys all know my rule of thumb. Number one thing with a collectible is to really enjoy it. First and foremost, it has to be something that you want to own. It's something that you enjoy, the aesthetics of it. That's really how I approach it. I don't approach this from a pure economic, investment perspective. The investment part's important. It's really nice to have and own pieces of cultural history that go up over time. And these books certainly, I do not believe, will disappoint over time. The next one is Infinity Gauntlet 1. This is an interesting book. I think a little bit underrated given the popularity of Thanos and the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and how critical this has been. But this is really, one of the books that launched it all. And those of us that were kids in the 90's just really thought this was the coolest thing to fill the Infinity Gauntlet and control all the universe. So this is the book to have, in my opinion. You're talking about a 1991 book, raw copies about $20. Look at that, only $20. And gradeds, I've seen high grades of this for over 400. So, I mean, theoretically, somebody could get a really good copy of this thing, get it graded, and really increase the value. So that's one that I think is a keeper for sure. And the last one I'm going to mention is Uncanny X-Men 282. This is first appearance of Bishop. A lot of us saw him in 2014's X-Men Days of Future Past. This is an iconic sort of book that the people from the, kids in the 90's really wanted to get their hands on. And this seems to be going up in value. You have 9.6s at $80+. You have 9.8s over 160. I think you can get a raw for about 20. So again, you get a raw version. This is a really nice copy I have here. You can see the everything, the edges and everything look really nice. The stapling, there's white pages inside, but yeah, this is a really nice copy. I'd say this would be somewhere in the 9s if it was graded, maybe a 9.4, 9.3 be my guess. So there it is, folks. Those are 5 that I think are up and coming and worth adding to a collection if they really do it for you. Hey, thanks a lot for watching, and talk with y'all soon.